After my wife died, my son didn't comfort me. He changed the locks and left my life in cardboard boxes on the curb. Days later, the hospital called demanding payment for my surgery. My son had signed the papers, then refused to pay. Not my responsibility anymore, he said. At the will reading, he leaned close and mocked me in joy being homeless. I made sure you get nothing. Then the lawyer calmly said, "There is one final section of the will." That's when my son fainted. Thank you so much for being here and taking a moment to listen to this story. If it resonates with you, please leave a comment and tell me where you're watching from. I truly read and appreciate everyone. Also, just a quick note. Parts of this story have been fictionalized for storytelling and educational purposes. Any names or settings are coincidental, but the lesson behind it is very real, and I hope it's meaningful for you. The phone rang at 11:47 p.m. while I was on my knees in the hallway, sanding the third step from the bottom, the one that had creaked for 6 months, the one Virginia kept reminding me to fix. My hands were covered in sawdust, and I'd been working by the light of a single lamp because I didn't want to wake her. She'd gone to bed early, said she was tired. She was always tired lately. I almost didn't answer. At that hour, it's never good news, but something instinct maybe, or 44 years of marriage teaching me to listen when the universe whispers made me wipe my hands on my jeans and pick up. Mr. Morgan. A woman's voice, professional, careful. The kind of careful that means someone's been trained to deliver bad news. This is Hartford General Hospital. I'm calling about your wife, Virginia Morgan. The sandpaper slipped from my hand. Is she? I couldn't finish. Couldn't make my mouth form the question. Mr. Morgan, I'm so sorry. Your wife was brought in by ambulance at 11:15 tonight. She went into cardiac arrest. We did everything we could, but... A pause. The kind that stretches forever. She didn't make it. I'm so sorry. Massive heart failure, they said. Sudden. Nothing anyone could have done. The lamp in the hallway flickered. The third step still creaked. And Virginia, my Virginia, was gone. I don't remember the drive to Hartford General. I remember grabbing my keys. I remember the cold steering wheel under my hands, the way my fingers wouldn't stop shaking. The Parkinson's makes my hands tremble sometimes, but this was different. This was my whole body trying to reject what I'd just heard. The hospital parking lot was almost empty. I found a spot near the emergency entrance and sat there for a moment, engine still running, staring at the bright lights of the ER. Inside those doors, Virginia was waiting. And I wasn't ready. 44 years, and I still wasn't ready to say goodbye. But you never are you? Nurse Angela Turner met me at the front desk. She was young, maybe 30, with kind eyes and a name tag that caught the fluorescent light. She didn't ask me to fill out paperwork. She just said, "Mr. Morgan, follow me, and led me down a hallway that smelled like disinfectant and grief. Room 7. That's where they'd put her. Room 7, like it was just another appointment, just another checkup. Angela opened the door. Take all the time you need, she said softly and stepped back. I walked in alone. Virginia looked like she was sleeping. That's what everyone says, isn't it? They looked peaceful. They looked like they were sleeping. But it's true. Her face was smooth, relaxed in a way I hadn't seen in months. No pain, no worry. Just still. They'd left her wedding ring on. I noticed that first. 44 years, that ring. I'd bought it at a little jewelry shop in West Hartford in 1979 with 2 months' pay from the construction site. It wasn't fancy, just a simple gold band, but she'd never taken it off. Not once. I reached for her hand. Still warm. Not cold yet. That surprised me. I don't know why. Maybe because in the movies they're always cold. But Virginia's hand was warm, and for a second, just a second, I let myself believe this was all a mistake. That she'd wake up. That we'd go home together. But she didn't wake up. I held her hand, and I cried. Not loud. Not the kind of crying you see in movies. just quiet tears that fell onto the white hospital sheet and disappeared. I told her I was sorry. Sorry I hadn't fixed that third step sooner. Sorry I hadn't noticed she was tired. Really tired, not just end-of-the-day tired. Sorry I hadn't said I love you that morning when she left for her book club. I told her I didn't know how to do this without her, and she didn't answer. Because she was gone. I don't know how long I sat there. Could have been 10 minutes. Could have been an hour. Time does strange things when your world ends. The door opened behind me. I didn't turn around. I knew who it was. I could hear the expensive shoes on the tile floor, the faint buzz of a phone on vibrate. Dad, Mike's voice, flat, no tears. I turned. He was standing in the doorway, still in his work clothes, tailored shirt, no tie phone in his hand. He'd been at some dinner, probably. Some client meeting. His BMW was parked outside next to my old truck, sleek and black, and $40,000 more than I'd ever spent on a car in my life. He glanced at Virginia, just a glance, like he was checking the time, and then looked at me. "We need to talk about arrangements," he said. Not, "How are you holding up?" Not, "I'm sorry, Dad." Not, "I can't believe she's gone." Arrangements. I stared at him. My son. My only son. And I didn't recognize him. "Mike," I started. "The funeral home, the service, all of that. We should get it scheduled fast. Before Christmas, probably." He was scrolling through his phone now, not even looking at me. "I'll handle it. You don't need to worry about the details." "I'm not worried about the details," I said quietly. "I'm worried about your mother." He looked up then. Something flashed across his face, annoyance maybe, and then it was gone. "She's gone, Dad. The details are all that's left." He pocketed his phone and turned to leave. At the door, he paused. "I'll call you tomorrow. We'll figure out next steps." He glanced at Virginia one more time, clinical, detached, like she was a problem to be solved, and walked out. I heard his shoes echoing down the hall. I heard the ding of the elevator. I heard him leave, and I sat there holding Virginia's hand, wondering when my son had become a stranger. As I watched my son scroll through his phone in the hospital hallway, Virginia's hand still warm in mine, I didn't know that this was only the beginning. I didn't know that in 4 days I wouldn't even be allowed into my own home. But I should have, because Virginia had known. She'd known for years, and she'd been planning. 4 days later, I stood at the back of St. Paul's Episcopal Church, watching my wife's funeral from a distance. I'd arrived early 6:30 a.m., an hour before anyone else, because I wanted to see Virginia one more time before they closed the casket. But when I got there, it was already sealed. White roses arranged on top. A framed photo from our wedding day, propped on an easel beside it. Virginia at 22, smiling in a dress she'd sewn herself, holding a bouquet of daisies because roses were too expensive. 44 years ago, a lifetime ago, I stood there alone in the empty church, my hand on the smooth wood of the casket, and said the things I didn't get to say in the hospital. The things I'd thought of at 3 a.m. when sleep wouldn't come. The things that mattered. Then people started arriving and I moved to the back. By 10 a.m., the church was full. Virginia had touched a lot of lives, her book club, her garden club, the women from her quilting group, neighbors we'd known for decades. They filed in quietly, found their seats, whispered condolences that I nodded at, but couldn't really hear. Mike and Tiffany sat in the front row, center seats, like they'd reserved them. Mike wore a black suit that probably cost more than my truck. Tiffany wore pearls. They looked like they'd stepped out of a magazine, polished, appropriate, the picture of grieving family. Mike had his arm around Tiffany's shoulders. Every few minutes she'd dab at her eyes with a tissue, though I never saw any tears. Amanda sat 3 rows back with Joshua. I caught her eye once when she first came in, and she looked away. Not coldly, just quickly, like she couldn't decide where to land. Joshua squeezed her hand. She stared straight ahead. Dylan wasn't there. When I asked Mike about it yesterday on the phone, he'd said, "He's too young to handle this, Dad. Better he remembers Grandma the way she was." Dylan was 16. old enough to handle a funeral, old enough to say goodbye. But Mike had decided for him. Pastor Williams kept the service short, opened with a prayer read from Psalms, talked about Virginia's kindness and her love for her family. It was nice. Generic, but nice. The kind of service you give someone when you know them a little, but not enough to really capture who they were. Then Mike stood up to give the eulogy. He walked to the podium with a folded piece of paper in his hand. Printed, I noticed, not handwritten. He smoothed it out, cleared his throat, and looked at the congregation with an expression I'd seen him practice in the mirror when he was in high school, somber, composed, in control. My mother, he began, was a devoted wife and a devoted mother. I felt something tighten in my chest. She gave everything to her family. She made our house a home. She taught us the value of hard work and the importance of— He paused, glanced down at his paper. The importance of being practical. Practical. Virginia hated that word. Be practical, Virginia. People used to tell her when she wanted to plant a garden on a construction worker's salary. Be practical, they said, when she insisted on driving 40 miles to visit her mother every Sunday, even though gas was expensive. She'd smile and do it anyway. Because Virginia wasn't practical. She was loving, she was stubborn, she was willing to sacrifice comfort for the people she cared about. But Mike didn't mention any of that. Mom would want us to honor her memory. He continued, by being realistic about what comes next, by taking care of business, by— He looked directly at me for the first time. By making smart decisions for the family's future. I understood what he was really saying. Sell the house, move on, don't be sentimental. The rest of the eulogy blurred. Something about cherishing memories. Something about moving forward. The words didn't matter. What mattered was the performance. Mike had rehearsed this, every pause, every inflection. This wasn't grief. This was a presentation. When he finished, people applauded softly. He returned to his seat. Tiffany took his hand, and I stood in the back invisible, wondering when my son had learned to lie so well. The service ended. People filed out to the parking lot, murmuring about the reception at the church hall, about how lovely the flowers were, about how strong Mike was to give such a beautiful eulogy. I walked slowly, letting the crowd thin. Leonard Foster fell into step beside me, my old friend from the construction crew, the one who'd lent me tools when I couldn't afford my own, the one who'd been at our wedding 44 years ago. That was a hell of a speech, Leonard said quietly. I didn't answer. Sounded like he was selling something, Leonard added. He was. We reached the parking lot. I was headed toward my truck when I heard footsteps behind me. Dad. I turned. Mike was walking toward me, Tiffany a few steps behind, scrolling through her phone. We need to talk about the house, Mike said. No preamble. No. How are you holding up? Just business. I looked at him. At my son. At this stranger in an expensive suit. What about it? I said. It's time to sell. You can't maintain it alone, Dad. The stairs, the yard, the repairs. He gestured vaguely, like the house was already falling apart. Mom would want you to be practical. There was that word again. That's my home, I said quietly. Virginia and I bought it in. Virginia's gone. His voice was flat. Not cruel exactly, just matter of fact. Be realistic. Something in me cracked. Not broke, not yet, but cracked. I am being realistic, I said. That house is where we raised you. Where we— Dad. Mike's tone sharpened. I'm trying to help you. The house is too big. You're getting older. You have Parkinson's. You need to downsize. I can help you find a place. I don't need your help. Mike's jaw tightened. For a second, I saw something flicker in his eyes. Anger, maybe, or frustration, and then it was gone. Fine, he said. We'll talk about this later, when you're thinking clearly. He turned and walked back to his BMW. Tiffany followed without looking up from her phone. Leonard stepped closer. "You okay?" I watched Mike's car pull out of the parking lot, tires crunching on gravel, and disappear down the street. "No," I said, "I'm not." Leonard put a hand on my shoulder. "Come stay with me tonight. You shouldn't be alone." I almost said no. Almost said I'd be fine. But the truth was, I didn't want to go back to that empty house. Not yet. "Okay," I said. We walked to our trucks together, and I tried not to think about Mike's words. Tried not to think about the way he'd said, "Be realistic," like fume. Like Virginia's life, our life together was something that could be reduced to square footage and market value. But I couldn't stop thinking about it. As I watched Mike's BMW pull out of the church parking lot, I thought that was the worst conversation we'd ever have. I was wrong. The next morning, I discovered I no longer had a key to my own front door. The morning after Virginia's funeral, I woke up at 6:30 a.m. on Leonard's couch. Same time I'd woken up for 40 years, body clock refusing to adjust, even when everything else had changed. Leonard was still asleep. I could hear him snoring softly from his bedroom down the hall. I made coffee in his kitchen, moving quietly, trying not to wake him. The house smelled like old wood and Murphy's oil soap, the way Virginia's house used to smell before she switched to that lavender stuff from the farmer's market. I stood at the window with my mug watching the sun come up over West Hartford and made a decision. I needed to go home, not to stay. Leonard had offered his spare room, and I'd probably take him up on it, but to get my things. Clothes, tools. The photo albums Virginia kept in the hall closet. My grandfather's watch. The stuff that mattered. I left a note for Leonard on the counter, gone to the house. Back by lunch. Then I got in my truck and drove to 523 Maple Drive. The neighborhood looked the same. Mrs. Helen Armstrong was out watering her roses even though it was December and the roses were dormant. She waved. I waved back. 2 houses down, the Kowalski's dog barked from behind their fence, same as he'd done every morning for 8 years. Everything looked normal. I pulled into the driveway behind Mike's truck, surprised to see it there this early but not alarmed. Maybe he'd stayed overnight to start sorting through Virginia's things. Maybe he wanted to talk. Really talk, without Tiffany scrolling through her phone in the background. Maybe I was still hoping my son would show up. I walked up the front steps, the ones I'd built in 1987, the ones I'd repaired a dozen times since, and pulled out my key. Slid it into the lock. It didn't turn. I tried again. Jiggled it, pulled it out, and checked to make sure I had the right key. I did. Same key I'd used for 38 years, worn smooth on one edge from my pocket. I tried a third time. Nothing. That's when I noticed the deadbolt. New, brass, shinier than the rest of the hardware. He'd changed the locks. I stood there for a moment, key in hand, staring at that new deadbolt like it was something from another planet. My brain couldn't process it. This was my house, my door, my lock, except it wasn't anymore. I knocked, footsteps inside. Heavy, slow. Then the door opened, and Mike stood there in sweatpants and a t-shirt, coffee mug in hand, looking at me like I was a door-to-door salesman. "What are you doing here?" he said. I blinked. "What am I?" "This is my house, Mike." "No," he said flatly. "It's not." I looked past him into the hallway. I could see the living room beyond Virginia's reading chair by the window. The bookshelf I'd built her for Christmas 10 years ago. The painting we'd bought at a yard sale in 1992 because Virginia said it looked like the house she grew up in. All of it still there. All of it mine. "Mike, what's going on?" I said. He took a sip of his coffee. "Didn't invite me in." "You don't live here anymore, Dad. I'm selling the house." The words didn't make sense. Couldn't make sense. "This is my house," I said again, slower this time, like maybe he hadn't heard me. "Virginia and I bought it in 1985. We checked the deed." Mike's voice was calm. Too calm. "Mom's name only. She transferred it 3 years ago." I stared at him. "What? 2021. She put the house in her name." Sole ownership. He shrugged. Which means it's part of her estate. Which means I inherit it. Which means... He gestured vaguely at me. You don't live here anymore. My mouth opened, closed. No words came out. Virginia had transferred the deed. Without telling me. That's not... I started. She wouldn't... She did. Mike reached into his back pocket and pulled out an envelope. Held it out to me. Here. $500. Should cover a motel for a couple weeks while you figure things out. I looked at the envelope. At the cash inside. At my son offering me money to leave my own home. I'm not taking your money, I said quietly. Mike shrugged again. Suit yourself. He started to close the door. Mike, wait. Oh, Dad. He stopped door half closed and looked at me with something close to pity. You're trespassing. Legally. I could call the cops, but I'm trying to be nice here. So take the money, get a room, and we'll figure out next steps later. Next steps. My voice cracked. This is my home. Was your home? He pushed the door shut. I heard the deadbolt slide into place. New. Brass. Locked. I stood there on my own front porch. The porch I'd rebuilt twice, the porch where Virginia and I used to sit on summer evenings, with lemonade and the newspaper, and I didn't know what to do. Then I saw the boxes, 3 of them. Cardboard, taped shut. Sitting at the end of the driveway near the curb like trash waiting for pickup. I walked over, opened the first one, my clothes. Jeans, flannel shirts, work boots. Thrown in without folding like someone had just grabbed armfuls from the closet and dumped them. Second box, tools. My hammer, my level, the electric sander Virginia bought me for my 60th birthday. The box was heavy, carelessly packed. I could hear things shifting inside. Third box, photos. Albums, loose pictures, frames. And on top, the wedding photo, the one that used to hang in the hallway. Virginia in that dress she'd sewn me in my only suit, both of us grinning like we'd won the lottery. It was in a black trash bag frame, cracked glass broken. He'd thrown it away. I pulled it out carefully, shook off the broken glass. Virginia's face smiled up at me, young and hopeful and so damn happy. Mr. Morgan. I turned. Mrs. Helen Armstrong was standing at the edge of her yard garden hose, still in hand, staring at me and the boxes. And what's going on, she said. I didn't know how to answer. Didn't know how to explain that my son had just locked me out of my own house the morning after burying my wife. My voice caught. I'm just getting some things. Mrs. Helen's eyes moved from me to the boxes to Mike's truck in the driveway. Her mouth tightened into a thin line. This isn't right, she said. No, I agreed. It's not. She pulled out her phone. I'm taking a picture. For the record, I didn't stop her. I loaded the 3 boxes into the bed of my truck. Didn't look at the house. Didn't look at the windows to see if Mike was watching. Just loaded the boxes, climbed into the cab, and started the engine. As I drove away from 523 Maple Drive, for what I thought might be the last time I didn't look in the rearview mirror. I couldn't, but I kept that wedding photo on the passenger seat, the one Mike had thrown away like garbage. And I made a promise to Virginia I wouldn't let him win. I'd been sleeping on Leonard Foster's couch for 3 nights now. 3 nights of staring at his ceiling, listening to the clock on the mantel tick, wondering how I'd gotten here. Every morning I woke up and forgot where I was. Forgot Virginia was gone. Forgot Mike had locked me out. For about 5 seconds, everything was normal. Then reality came back heavy as concrete. Leonard never asked how long I'd stay. Just made coffee in the mornings extra strong the way I liked it, and left the newspaper folded on the table. You're staying as long as you need to. He'd said that first night when I showed up with 3 cardboard boxes. I got a spare room upstairs. But I couldn't take his spare room. The couch was temporary. The couch meant I was still figuring things out. Leonard and I went back 40 years. We'd met in 1984 on a construction site in downtown Hartford, both of us young, both trying to make something of ourselves. He'd worked nights as a firefighter, days doing carpentry. I'd lent him my truck when his broke down. He'd lent me tools I couldn't afford. His wife Ellen died 5 years ago. Cancer. I'd driven him to the hospital every day for 2 months during her chemo. You don't forget friendships like that. So when I'd shown up at his door with everything I owned in 3 boxes, Leonard hadn't asked questions. He'd just opened the door wider and said, "Come on in." On Saturday morning, December 14th, I finally opened the boxes. I'd been avoiding them. Didn't want to see my life reduced to cardboard. But Leonard had gone to the hardware store, and the house was too quiet, and I needed something to do with my hands. First box: tools. My hammer, 40 years old, handle worn smooth. My tape measure, my level. The electric sander Virginia had given me for my 60th birthday. I set it aside, throat tight. Second box: clothes. Jeans, flannel shirts, work boots. Everything smelled like cedar, like our bedroom. Like home. Third box: photos. I pulled out the wedding album. Virginia in that dress she'd sewn herself because a real wedding dress cost too much. Me in my cousin's borrowed suit, 2 sizes too big. Both of us grinning like we'd won the lottery. We'd gotten married at City Hall on a Tuesday. Just us and 2 witnesses and a judge who'd said, "You kids look happy." We were. I turned the page. Our first apartment. Virginia pregnant with Mike. Pictures I hadn't looked at in years. I closed the album. Couldn't look anymore. At the bottom of the box, I found Virginia's gardening journal. Notes about planting schedules, watering times, where the sun hit best. The last entry was from October. Lavender doing well this year. Edward says the smell reminds him of his grandmother. I sat on Leonard's floor holding that journal, and something in me cracked. Leonard came home around noon, took one look at me surrounded by boxes and albums and didn't say anything. Just sat down on the floor next to me. "You need a lawyer," he finally said. I shook my head. I don't even know where to start. Oh, did Virginia have a lawyer? I thought about it. Maybe she handled all the paperwork. Leonard nodded toward my wallet on the coffee table. Check. I didn't know what I was looking for, but I opened it anyway. Driver's license, credit card, $23, insurance card, and a business card. Small. White. Bent from being in my wallet for who knows how long. Christine Lawson. Estate Attorney, Harrison and Cole Law Offices, 203555047. I turned it over. On the back in Virginia's handwriting, I'd know those looped L's anywhere, was a note. If something happens. CL. I stared at it. Read it again. Turned it back over. "What's that?" Leonard asked. "A business card," I said slowly. "For a lawyer." Virginia must have put it in my wallet. Leonard leaned over, looked at the note. If something happens. Happens to what? I don't know. But even as I said it, something shifted in my chest. Virginia had put this card in my wallet. Had written that note. Had wanted me to find it. If something happens. Something had happened. "Call her," Leonard said. "Monday morning." I looked at the card again. At Virginia's handwriting. At the phone number I'd never noticed before. "Okay," I said. "Monday." That Sunday night. December 16th, I sat at Leonard's kitchen table long after he'd gone to bed, turning Christine Lawson's business card over and over in my hands. Virginia's handwriting on the back. If something happens, CL. What had she known? What had she been trying to tell me? The clock on the wall ticked past midnight. The house was silent except for Leonard's soft snoring from upstairs. I set the card down, picked it up again, traced Virginia's handwriting with my thumb. She'd planned something. I didn't know what. Didn't know why she hadn't told me. But tomorrow, Monday morning, I'd find out. I owed her that much. On January 15th, 2024, 5 weeks after Virginia's death, I walked into Christine Lawson's office on the 12th floor of a glass building downtown, carrying nothing but that business card and a faint hope that someone could help me. The office was clean and modern, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Hartford, mahogany desk with neat stacks of files. Diplomas on the wall, Yale Law Connecticut Bar Association. Everything about it said expensive, and I almost turned around. I couldn't afford expensive, but the receptionist had already seen me. "Mr. Morgan," I nodded. "Ms. Lawson is expecting you. Go right in." Expecting me. I hadn't called ahead, hadn't made an appointment. I'd just shown up at 9 a.m. because Leonard had pushed me out the door with coffee and a pep talk. The door to the inner office opened, and a woman in her mid-50s stepped out. Sharp gray suit, reading glasses on a chain, the kind of calm authority that comes from 30 years of practice. "Mr. Morgan," she said, extending her hand. "I'm Christine Lawson. I've been expecting you." I shook her hand, confused. "You have... Please sit." She gestured to the chairs across from her desk. "Virginia and I have been working together for 10 years. The words didn't register at first. Couldn't register. 10 years, I said slowly. Christine sat down, folded her hands on the desk, and looked at me with something close to sympathy. "Yes, since 2014. Your wife came to me after a cancer scare. It was benign, but it changed her perspective. She wanted to make sure you were protected." I stared at her. Protected from what? From Mike. Christine opened a file on her desk. Thick, organized. Tab dividers with dates going back a decade. "Your wife knew Mike had problems," she said carefully. "Financial problems, gambling problems. She discovered them in 2015 and started documenting everything." She slid a stack of papers across the desk. Receipts, bank statements, handwritten notes in Virginia's looping script. 2009, $30,000. Investment opportunity. 2015, $5,000. Emergency car repair. 2018, $12,000. Business licenses. 2021, $8,000. Medical bills. I read through them twice. Loans Virginia had given Mike over 12 years. Loans he'd never paid back. "That's over $55,000, Christine said quietly. "None of it repaid. None of it even acknowledged." My throat was dry. "I didn't know. She didn't tell you. She said if you knew you'd try to help him, and she couldn't let that happen." I looked up from the papers. Why not? Because helping Mike meant enabling Mike. And Virginia knew that if she didn't protect the estate, Mike would take everything, which is exactly what he tried to do. Christine pulled out another document. Crisp, legal, stamped. "CK, power of attorney," she said. "Filed December 2023. Mike claimed you were incompetent due to Parkinson's disease and grief. He forged your signature." I felt like I'd been punched. "He forged..." "We have proof. The signature analysis came back last week. It's not yours. Which means Mike committed fraud. Which means..." Christine leaned forward. "Your wife was playing chess while he was playing checkers." "Let me show you what Virginia built," Christine said. She pulled up a spreadsheet on her computer, turned the screen toward me. "Virginia Eleanor Morgan, estate summary. Real property. 523 Maple Drive, Hartford, Connecticut. $520,000. Deed transferred to Virginia E. Morgan, sole ownership. March 2021. Life insurance. Northwestern Mutual Policy, number 8847392. $400,000. Beneficiary Edward Morgan. Financial accounts, savings. Hartford Federal Credit Union. $178,000. Stocks/bonds Fidelity. $78,000 401k retirement account. $95,000. Total estate value $1,271,000. I couldn't speak. Couldn't process the numbers. $1 million. Virginia had saved $1 million. How I finally managed. She worked part-time as a bookkeeper for 10 years, Christine said. Quiet work. Careful work. Every paycheck went into accounts in her name only. She never told Mike, never told you, because she knew Mike would find a way to take it. I thought about Virginia coming home from work. Tired. Always tired lately. I thought she was just getting older. Thought the bookkeeping job was just something to keep her busy. She'd been building a fortress. The house deed. Christine continued. Transferred in 2021. You signed the papers, but I doubt you noticed. Virginia told you it was for tax purposes. I remembered. Vaguely. Sitting at the kitchen table, Virginia sliding papers in front of me. Just a formality, honey. Saves us on property taxes. I'd signed without reading. It saved more than taxes, Christine said. It saved your home. Mike can't touch it. It's not marital property. It's not his. It's yours. What do I do now? I asked. Christine closed the file. We wait. Wait. For the will reading, June 20th. Virginia's will is ironclad. Witnessed. Notarized. Video recorded with a forensic psychiatrist confirming her mental competency. Mike can contest it, but he'll lose. He'll try anyway. Of course he will. Christine smiled grimly. That's why Virginia set aside a $50,000 defense fund. For legal fees. For your protection. She thought of everything. I sat back in the chair, overwhelmed. Virginia had known. For 10 years, she'd known Mike would do this. And she'd spent a decade quietly, carefully, methodically building a wall between him and me. Why didn't she tell me? I said. Christine's expression softened. Because you would have tried to fix it, tried to save Mike. And Virginia knew. She paused. Some people can't be saved. They can only be contained. I left Christine's office at noon, walking out into the January cold with a folder full of documents I didn't fully understand, and a head spinning with numbers and plans and revelations. Virginia had saved over $1 million. She'd transferred the house deed. She'd documented Mike's loans. She'd hired a lawyer. She'd recorded a video. She'd set aside money for my defense. For 10 years, she'd been 3 steps ahead. And I'd had no idea. As I walked to my truck, my hands were shaking. Not from the Parkinson's, not this time. From something else. Gratitude. Grief. Awe. Virginia had known. She'd always known. And she'd protected me. But as I sat in the truck key in the ignition, staring at the folder on the passenger seat, one question burned in my mind. What else had she planned that I didn't know about? 3 days after meeting Christine, I couldn't sleep. It was 2 a.m. and I kept thinking, if Virginia had planned this for 10 years, there had to be more. There had to be something she left for me. Leonard found me in the kitchen, staring out the window. You're not sleeping, he said. Can't. I keep thinking there has to be more. Something Virginia left. Leonard was quiet for a moment. Then, there's a box in my attic. Virginia dropped it off 2 years ago. Said to give it to you when the time comes. I looked up. Show me. The attic stairs creaked. Leonard pulled the cord for the overhead bulb. In the corner on top of old boxes sat a brown cardboard box, taped shut. On the side in Virginia's handwriting, for Edward. When the time comes. My hands shook as I carried it downstairs. We set it on the kitchen table. I cut the tape with my pocket knife. Inside, everything was organized. That was Virginia meticulous, nothing left to chance. Bank statements. Hartford Federal Credit Union. Account in Virginia's name only. Opened March 2014. 10 years of deposits. Final balance $178,412. House deed. Transfer documents March 2021. From Edward and Virginia Morgan to Virginia E. Morgan sole ownership. My signature at the bottom. I'd signed it thinking it was for taxes, insurance policies. Northwestern Mutual, life insurance $400,000. Beneficiary Edward Morgan, and then a thick envelope. Rubber banded, bulging. I opened it. 67 receipts, each one paper-clipped with a handwritten note. October 2009. Check. Leonard found me in the kitchen, staring out the window. "You're not sleeping," he said. "I can't. I keep thinking there has to be more. Something Virginia left." Leonard was quiet for a moment. Then, "There's a box in my attic. Virginia dropped it off 2 years ago. Said to give it to you when the time comes." I looked up. "Show me." The attic stairs creaked. Leonard pulled the cord for the overhead bulb. In the corner on top of old boxes sat a brown cardboard box, taped shut. On the side in Virginia's handwriting, for Edward, "When the time comes." My hands shook as I carried it downstairs. We set it on the kitchen table. I cut the tape with my pocket knife. Inside, everything was organized. That was Virginia meticulous, nothing left to chance. Bank statements. Hartford Federal Credit Union. Account in Virginia's name only. Opened March 2014. 10 years of deposits. Final balance $178,412. House deed. Transfer documents, March 2021. From Edward and Virginia Morgan to Virginia E. Morgan, sole ownership. My signature at the bottom. I'd signed it thinking it was for taxes. Insurance policies. Northwestern Mutual. Life insurance $400,000. Beneficiary Edward Morgan. And then a thick envelope. Rubber banded. Bulging. I opened it. 67 receipts. Each one paper-clipped with a handwritten note. October 2009. Check $1,847, $30,000. Investment opportunity. Mike. Never repaid. June 2015. Cash, $5,000. Emergency car repair. Mike. Car repossessed 3 months later. November 2018. Check $3,392, $12,000. Business licenses. Mike. Business never opened. March 2021. Bank transfer $8,000. Medical bills. Mike. Gambling debts. 12 years of loans. Everyone documented. Everyone with Virginia's notes. At the bottom, a piece of notebook paper. He never paid back a cent. There was one more thing. A sealed envelope. White, my name on the front. Underneath read this alone. Leonard quietly left the room. "My dearest Edward, if you're reading this, I'm gone. And I'm so sorry I'm not there with you. But I want you to know I've been preparing for this day for a very long time. I've known about Mike's problems since 2009. The gambling, the debts, the lies. At first I thought I could help him. I gave him money. I believed his stories, but the money disappeared, and the stories kept changing, and I realized he wasn't going to stop. I couldn't tell you. I know how that sounds. I know you're probably angry with me right now. But Edward, if I'd told you, you would have tried to fix it. You would have given him more money, more chances. You would have believed him, because that's who you are. You see the best in people even when they don't deserve it. I couldn't let that happen. I couldn't let him destroy you the way he was destroying himself. So I kept secrets. I opened accounts you didn't know about. I transferred the house deed. I documented everything. And I hated it. I hated lying to you. I hated carrying this alone. But I had to protect you. Even if it meant you'd be angry with me later. Even if it meant you'd never understand why. I hope you can forgive me. Please trust Christine. I've been working with her for 10 years. She knows the plan. She'll guide you through it. And Edward, I know this is hard. I know you're hurting. But you're stronger than you think. You always have been. I love you. I've always loved you. From the day we got married in that courthouse with your cousin's borrowed suit, to the day I wrote this letter knowing I might not see you again. You were my home. You still are. Forever yours, Virginia. I sat at Leonard's kitchen table as dawn broke Virginia's letter in my hands, surrounded by a decade of evidence she'd quietly collected. She'd known. She'd always known. And she'd protected me even when it meant carrying the weight alone. I cried then. Not the quiet tears from the hospital. This time I sobbed for Virginia, for the secrets she'd kept, for the burden she'd carried, for the love that drove every decision. When I finally stopped, I folded Virginia's letter carefully, put it back in the envelope, set it on top of the box with the receipts and the bank statements and the proof of everything she'd done. She'd documented everything. She'd built a fortress. But one question remained. What else had she set in motion? The answer came the next morning. My phone lit up with a Facebook message from someone I never expected. Dylan Morgan. At 7:34 p.m. on January 18th, my phone buzzed with a Facebook message. I almost didn't check it. I barely used Facebook, only kept the account, because Virginia used to tag me in photos, but something made me look. The name at the top, Dylan Morgan. I stared at it. Read it again. Dylan. My grandson. The kid I hadn't seen in 5 years. For a second I thought it was spam. Some scam using his name. But then I opened it. Grandpa, I need to talk to you. I have something you need to hear. Please don't tell Dad. My heart stopped. I hadn't seen Dylan since 2019. He'd been 11 then, still a kid, still excited about comic books and building things with his hands. We'd spent every Sunday together for 9 years. I'd taught him basic carpentry, how to use a level, how to measure twice and cut once. He'd loved it. Then one day in March 2019, Mike stopped bringing him. He's busy with school, Mike had said when I'd asked. Got a lot of homework. You know how it is. I'd nodded, believed him. Kids get busy. But weeks turned into months. I'd call Mike's house, ask to talk to Dylan. Mike always had an excuse. He's at a friend's house. He's studying. He's asleep. Virginia had tried too. Called Mike's cell. Mike blocked her number. By 2020, I'd stopped trying. Figured Dylan had outgrown me. Teenagers do that right. Grow up, get embarrassed by their grandparents, move on. But this message, please don't tell Dad, suggested something else. I showed Leonard the phone. What do you think? I said. Is it real, or is Mike messing with me? Leonard read the message twice. Could be a trap. That's what I'm thinking. But what if it's not? Leonard looked at me. What if the kid actually needs you? I stared at the screen, at Dylan's name, at the words, I need to talk to you. Only one way to find out, Leonard said. I typed slowly, thumb shaking. Dylan, is this really you? The reply came immediately. 3 dots. Then, yes, Grandpa, it's me. I'm 16 now. I remember you used to teach me carpentry on Sundays. You made me that wooden box for my Legos, the one with the sliding lid. I sat down hard. The Lego box. I'd made it in 2018, Dylan's 11th birthday. He'd been obsessed with Legos, had them scattered all over Mike's living room. Virginia had joked that someone was going to step on one and break a toe, so I'd built him a box. Pine wood sanded smooth with a sliding lid that locked with a small wooden peg. Dylan's name burned into the top with Virginia's wood-burning kit. He'd loved it, carried it everywhere for months. Mike couldn't have known about that box. He'd never paid attention to the things Dylan and I made together. This was real. Why now, I typed. Why after 5 years? The 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. Because Grandma Virginia told me to. She gave me this phone 2 years ago. She said when the time came, I'd know what to do. I read it 3 times. Virginia had given Dylan a phone 2 years ago. She gave you a phone. Yes. In 2022. Right after Dad said I couldn't visit you anymore. She met me at school one day and handed me this old smartphone. Said to keep it hidden. Said someday I'd need it to reach you. I looked at Leonard. He'd been reading over my shoulder. She knew, Leonard said quietly. 2 years before she died, she knew Mike would cut you off, and she made sure Dylan had a way to reach you. My hands were shaking again. Not from Parkinson's. From the realization that Virginia's plan went deeper than bank accounts and receipts and legal documents. She'd protected my connection to Dylan. Can we meet? Dylan's next message read, "Day after tomorrow. There's something you need to hear. Something I recorded. Recorded. I can't explain over text, but it's important. Please, Grandpa? I need your help." I hesitated, looked at Leonard. "Public place," Leonard said. "Somewhere safe, just in case." I nodded, typed where. "Anywhere you want. I can get there." I thought for a moment. "Pete's Diner, Main Street, downtown Hartford. Day after tomorrow, 2 p.m. Do you know it?" "I'll find it. Come alone," I typed. "And Dylan, I know. Don't tell Dad." "I won't. He can't know about this." The way he said it, "he can't know," made my chest tighten. Dylan wasn't just keeping a secret. He was scared. After Dylan stopped replying, I sat at Leonard's kitchen table with my phone in my hands, staring at the conversation. Dylan had been 11 when I'd last seen him. A kid. Now he was 16. Almost a man. 5 years I'd missed. 5 years Mike had stolen. And Virginia had known. She'd known Mike would cut Dylan off. So she'd given my grandson a secret phone and told him to wait. "When the time comes, you'll know what to do." "What do you think he recorded?" Leonard asked. "I don't know." But even as I said it, I had a feeling, a suspicion that made my stomach turn. If Virginia had given Dylan a phone to keep hidden from Mike, and if Dylan had something recorded that he couldn't explain over text, it had to be Mike. That night, I barely slept. I lay on Leonard's couch, staring at the ceiling, thinking about Dylan, about the Lego box I'd made him 6 years ago, about the kid who used to spend every Sunday with me learning to measure and sand and build, about the phone Virginia had given him in secret, about whatever he'd recorded that he needed me to hear. Day after tomorrow, January 20th at 2 p.m., I'd meet my grandson for the first time in 5 years, and something told me that whatever Dylan had to show me would change everything. At 1:55 p.m. on January 20th, I sat in a booth at Pete's Diner, hands wrapped around a cup of coffee I couldn't drink, watching the door. The diner smelled like grease and bacon the way it had for 40 years. Pete, the actual Pete, not his son who ran it now, had served Virginia and me breakfast here the morning after our wedding in 1979. 45 years later, the booths were still red vinyl. The jukebox still played oldies, and I was still sitting here waiting for something that would change my life. At exactly 2 o'clock p.m., a teenage boy walked in. Tall, skinny in that awkward way 16-year-olds are. Dark hair, Mike's jawline, but something softer in his eyes. For a moment I saw Mike at 17, before the gambling, before the lies, when he still looked at me like I was someone worth knowing. Then Dylan saw me and waved nervously, and the moment broke. "Hi, Grandpa," Dylan said, sliding into the booth across from me. "Hi, Dylan." Silence. We stared at each other like strangers because that's what we were now. 5 years changes a kid. 11 to 16. Middle school to high school. Boy to young man. "I wasn't sure you'd come," Dylan said finally. "I wasn't sure this was real." Dylan's mouth twitched almost a smile. "Yeah, I get that." A waitress came by. Dylan ordered water. I ordered more coffee I wouldn't drink. She left. Dylan reached into his jacket and pulled out a phone. Old. Android. Cracked screen. Not the iPhone I'd seen teenagers carrying lately. "Grandma gave me this in 2019, Dylan said. "Right after Dad stopped letting me visit you. She met me outside school one day and handed it to me. Told me to hide it. Said someday I'd need it." I looked at the phone. At Virginia's foresight reaching back 5 years. "Why?" When I asked, Dylan's eyes met mine. "She said when the time came I'd know what to do." He paused. She was right. Dylan tapped the phone screen, opened a folder, selected a file. "Thanksgiving 2022, he said. 14 months ago. I was in my room. They were in the kitchen. They thought I couldn't hear them. He pressed play. The audio was muffled at first, background noise, dishes clinking. Then voices. Clear. Unmistakable. Mike's voice. Once the old man is gone, we'll have everything. The house, the insurance, everything. Tiffany's voice. What if he doesn't cooperate? Mike. We'll have him declared incompetent if we have to. He's already showing signs with that Parkinson's thing. Tiffany. What about your mom, Mike? She won't be around forever. And when she goes, I'll make sure everything's in my name. Dad won't even know what hit him. Laughter. Then the recording ended. I couldn't speak. Couldn't move. The words echoed in my head. Once the old man is gone, declared incompetent. Won't even know what hit him. My son. My son had said those things. Had laughed about them. Grandpa, Dylan's voice was small. Scared. I looked up. Dylan was watching me, waiting. She knew, Dylan said quietly. Grandma knew. She recorded their conversations for 2 years. Different holidays, different nights. She gave me this phone so I'd have proof. Why didn't she tell me? My voice cracked. She said you'd try to fix it. Try to save Dad. She said Dad would hurt you if you got in his way. Dylan's hands were shaking. She was protecting you. I closed my eyes. Virginia. Always protecting me. Even when it meant lying. Even when it meant carrying the weight alone. Why are you telling me now? I asked. Because she's gone. Dylan's voice broke. And you need this. For the will reading. To prove what Dad's really like. I opened my eyes. Looked at my grandson, this brave, scared 16-year-old kid who'd kept Virginia's secret for 5 years. Yeah, you'd testify, I said, in court against your father. Yes. No hesitation. I'm done lying for him. Dylan. He's not a father, Grandpa. Dylan's eyes were wet now. Fathers don't plot against their parents. Fathers don't cut their kids off from people who love them. He's a bully. And I'm done. I reached across the table, took Dylan's hand. His fingers were cold. You're the only grandfather I have left, Dylan whispered. And you're the bravest person I know, I said. Dylan started to cry then. Quiet tears, the kind you try to hide. I squeezed his hand tighter. I miss her so much, he said. Me too, son, I said. Me too. We sat there for a while. 2 people who'd lost Virginia, who'd been manipulated and lied to and kept apart, finally finding each other again. Eventually, Dylan wiped his eyes, drank his water, looked at me. What happens now? He asked. Now, I said, we make sure Virginia's plan works. Dylan nodded. The will reading, June 20th, 5 months from now. Can you keep this secret until then? I've kept it for 5 years, Dylan said. I can keep it 5 more months. If your father finds out, he won't. I'll be careful. I looked at this kid, this young man who'd just given me the ammunition to take down his own father, and I felt something I hadn't felt in weeks. Hope. Not just for justice, for family. As Dylan and I left Pete's diner that afternoon, the recording safely in my pocket, I felt lighter than I had in months. Dylan was brave, braver than I'd ever been, and together we were going to make sure Virginia's plan succeeded. But first we had to survive what came next. On February 10th, 3 weeks after meeting Dylan, I received a phone call that proved Mike wasn't done. Not even close. I was at Leonard's kitchen table sorting through paperwork Christine had sent, estate documents, court filings, things I barely understood when my phone rang. Unknown number, Hartford area code. I almost didn't answer, but Leonard looked up from his newspaper and said, "Might be important." I picked up. "Hello? Mr. Morgan. This is Russell Adams, administrator at Hartford General Hospital. Do you have a moment?" My stomach dropped. Hospital calls were never good news. "Yes," I said. What's wrong? We have an issue with your account, sir. Your hip surgery bill, $45,000, hasn't been paid. According to our records, your son Michael Morgan signed as guarantor, but he's refused payment. The words didn't register at first. Couldn't register. He what? Russell's voice was careful, professional. The kind of careful that comes from making these calls every day. He called yesterday afternoon, said, and I'm quoting here, "He's not my responsibility anymore." Then he hung up. Not my responsibility. I set the phone down on speaker. Leonard was already standing, moving closer. Mr. Adams," I said slowly. "My wife passed away 2 months ago. My son locked me out of my house the day after her funeral. I haven't spoken to him since." Silence on the other end. Then, "I'm very sorry for your loss, Mr. Morgan, and for this situation. But the hospital still needs payment. If we don't receive it within 30 days, we'll have to turn the account over to collections." Collections. My credit ruined. Bills I couldn't pay. All because Mike had signed a piece of paper and then walked away. "I don't have $45,000, I said quietly. "I understand. We can set up a payment plan. Give me 24 hours, I said. "Let me call my attorney." Russell agreed. We hung up. I stared at the phone. Leonard sat down across from me. "What do you need?" "Christine," I said. "I need Christine." Christine Lawson answered on the second ring. "Edward, everything okay?" "No," I explained the hospital call. Mike's refusal. The $45,000 bill. Russell Adams's ultimatum. When I finished, Christine was quiet for a moment. Then, "Use the defense fund." "The what?" "The $50,000 defense fund Virginia set aside. That's exactly what it's for." I blinked. "But that's for legal fees, court costs." It's for protecting you," Christine said firmly. "From Mike. From situations exactly like this. Virginia knew he'd try something. This is something." "But," Edward, "stop. Virginia planned for this. Let her protect you." I closed my eyes. Virginia. Always 3 steps ahead. Even from the grave. "Okay," I said. "Okay. I'll wire the money to Hartford General today. Give me Russell Adams's direct line." I gave her the number. Christine was silent for a moment, typing, probably entering it into her system. "What about Mike?" I asked. "He signed as guarantor. Doesn't that mean—" "It means he committed fraud," Christine said. "He agreed to pay, then refused. We'll add it to the complaint." Complaint. Elder financial abuse. Abandonment of medical responsibility. Fraud. This isn't just civil court anymore, Edward. Mike's committed crimes. Real crimes. When we go to the will reading on June 20th, we're bringing all of this with us. June 20th, 4 months away. It felt like forever. "He thinks he's won," I said. Christine's voice went cold. "Good. Let him think that. The longer he believes it, the harder he'll fall." I thought about Mike in that hospital room, the night Virginia died, scrolling through his phone while her body was still warm. Thought about him changing the locks, throwing my wedding photo in the trash, refusing to pay my medical bills. "Is it wrong," I said slowly, "that I want to see that I want to watch him fall?" Christine was quiet for a second. Then, "No, Edward. It's human." After I hung up, I sat at Leonard's table for a long time, staring at nothing. Leonard poured me fresh coffee, sat down, didn't say anything. Finally, I looked up. 4 months. 4 months. Leonard agreed. 4 months until Mike finds out. Leonard's mouth twitched into something that wasn't quite a smile. 4 months until justice. I picked up my coffee. It was still hot. Leonard had remembered I liked it black, no sugar, the way I'd been drinking it for 50 years. "And Virginia set aside $50,000, I said, "just in case Mike did this." "She knew," Leonard said simply. She always knew. We sat there in the quiet kitchen winter sun coming through the window, and for the first time in weeks, I felt something close to peace. Mike had tried to destroy me, tried to take my home, my money, my dignity. But Virginia had built a fortress, and brick by brick that fortress was holding. 4 months until June 20th. 4 months until the will reading. 4 months until Mike's world collapsed. But neither Leonard nor I knew how much worse things would get before then. Because the next week Mike stopped playing private games. He went public. I should have known something was wrong when Mike called Monday morning and invited me to church. My son hadn't invited me anywhere in 5 years. But his voice was different, soft, pleading. "Dad, maybe we should talk. With professional help." Pastor Richards offered to mediate. Leonard watched me hang up. "You're not going. It's a church. What's he going to do?" Leonard's expression told me exactly what Mike was going to do. St. Andrew's Church sat on Farmington Avenue, a brick building with a white steeple. I arrived at 2 o'clock. The parking lot was half full. Inside the fellowship hall was arranged like an intervention. Chairs in a circle, tissues on the table. A woman in a navy suit with a clipboard. Mike and Tiffany sat on one side. Pastor Richards sat next to them looking uncomfortable. 3 church members I vaguely recognized occupied other chairs, and in the center was the woman with the clipboard, and Dad. Mike stood, smiled. "Thank you for coming. This is Dr. Nancy Hoffman. She's a specialist in addiction and cognitive impairment." The room tilted. Dr. Hoffman extended her hand. "Mr. Morgan, your son has expressed concerns about your ability to manage your affairs." I didn't shake her hand. "What is this?" "An intervention." Mike pulled papers from a folder. "I've prepared guardianship documents. Dr. Hoffman will conduct a preliminary assessment. If she determines you're unable to make sound decisions, I'm not incompetent." "Dad." Mike's voice was patient. "You're living on a friend's couch. You can't pay your hospital bills. You've made irrational accusations because you did steal from me." Tiffany spoke. "Edward, we're worried. The Parkinson's, the pain medications." "I don't take pain medications." "The pharmacy records suggest otherwise," Dr. Hoffman said. She opened her clipboard. "Mr. Morgan, could you tell me what day it is?" "No, I'm not answering your questions." Mike's smile never wavered. "See defensive, paranoid, classic cognitive decline." The door opened behind me. Christine Lawson walked into the fellowship hall carrying a briefcase and an expression that could freeze lava. She wore a charcoal suit. Her heels clicked like a countdown. "I'm Christine Lawson, Mr. Morgan's attorney. This meeting is over." Mike stood. "This is a private family matter. This is elder abuse." Christine set her briefcase on the table, opened it, pulled out 3 folders. "And I have documentation." Dr. Hoffman looked uncertain. "I'm just here to conduct an assessment on a man you've never met, based on information from his estranged son, who stands to inherit if guardianship is granted." Christine's voice was ice. "Have you reviewed Mr. Morgan's medical records?" "Well, no." "Then let me help." Christine opened the first folder. Medical records from Dr. Lisa Crawford, Mr. Morgan's primary physician of 15 years. Last exam, February 28, 2024. Diagnosis: early-stage Parkinson's, well managed. Cognitive function normal. Dr. Crawford's notes state, quote, "Patient demonstrates clear decision-making capacity." She opened the second folder. Cognitive evaluation by Dr. Patricia Chen, neuropsychologist. Last month. Mr. Morgan scored normal for his age. No dementia or impaired judgment. Mike's face was red. "Those are undocumented medical facts." Christine opened the third folder. Bank statements for 6 months. He's managed finances independently. Paid bills on time. No erratic decisions. The only financial abuse here is the hospital bill your son refused to pay, leaving his father to cover $45,000 out of pocket. The room was silent. Christine turned to Dr. Hoffman. Did Mike Morgan disclose he forged a power of attorney 3 months ago? That he changed his father's locks the day after his mother's funeral? That his mother specifically excluded him from inheriting because she knew he would do this? Dr. Hoffman closed her clipboard. I think there's been a misunderstanding. I think you've been used in an estate dispute. If you proceed, I'll file a complaint with the Connecticut Medical Board for conducting an evaluation under false pretenses. Dr. Hoffman stood. I'm not comfortable continuing. She looked at Mike. This isn't what you described. She walked out. Mrs. Helen Armstrong spoke from the back row. I hadn't noticed her. My neighbor who'd witnessed Mike throwing my belongings into boxes, who'd photographed my wedding portrait in the trash, stood and walked to the center. I've known the Morgans 32 years, she said. Her voice shook but carried. I watched Edward raise his children. I watched Virginia battle cancer. And I'm telling you, Mike Morgan is lying. She showed her phone to Pastor Richards. This photo is from December 13th. Edward's belongings on the lawn. His son changing the locks. This is not dementia. This is robbery. 3 other church members stood. Mr. and Mrs. Patterson from Maple Drive. Sarah Chen, whose father Virginia had helped. We've seen this, Mr. Patterson said. Pastor Richards closed his eyes. When he opened them, he looked at Mike. I agreed to mediate a family conversation, not participate in elder abuse. This meeting is over. Mike's chair scraped back. You'll regret this, Christine smiled. I already do, but not for the reasons you think. Mike grabbed Tiffany's arm. They left. Mrs. Armstrong hugged me after they'd gone. The Pattersons shook my hand. Sarah Chen promised to testify if needed. Pastor Richards apologized, said he'd been deceived. Christine packed her briefcase. He's desperate. That means he's dangerous. What do I do? But you wait. The will reading is June 20th. That's when this ends. Until then, you document everything. You stay safe. And you trust Virginia's plan. She paused at the door. This was rehearsal, Edward. June 20th is the real performance. I walked out into the March afternoon. For the first time since Virginia died, I felt something other than grief. I felt hope. 3 days later, there was a knock on Leonard's door. I opened it. Amanda stood on the porch, her eyes red from crying. She whispered. We need to talk about Mike. When Amanda knocked on Leonard's door on March 8th, 3 days after the intervention, her eyes were red and her hands shook. Dad, she said, I need to know the truth. I opened the door. My daughter stood on the porch in her nursing scrubs. Hair pulled back, mascara smudged. She looked like she'd driven here straight from her shift at Hartford Hospital without stopping to breathe. Could you come in? I said. She stepped inside. Hadn't visited since the funeral. 3 months. Leonard nodded from the kitchen and disappeared upstairs, giving us space. Amanda sat on the couch where I'd been sleeping, folded her hands, unfolded them. Mike called me yesterday. He said you were at church, that there was an intervention. There was. He said you refused help, that you got angry and stormed out, that your lawyer showed up and made threats. She looked up. Is that true? That's Mike's version. What's yours? I sat in Leonard's recliner. What exactly did Mike tell you? Amanda's voice cracked. That you're addicted to pain medication, that you can't take care of yourself, that Mom left the house to him because she knew you couldn't manage it. She wiped her eyes. That you're sick, Dad, that you need help and you won't accept it. And you believed him. I don't know what to believe anymore. The words burst out. You're my father, and he's my brother, and Mom is gone, and I don't know who's telling the truth. I leaned forward. Sit down. There's something you need to hear. I pulled out the phone Dylan had given me. The old phone Virginia had given him in 2019. Found the recording. Pressed play. Amanda listened. At first, her expression was confused. Then it changed. Her hand came up to cover her mouth. Mike's voice. Once the old man is gone, we'll have everything. The house is worth $500,000. Life insurance is $400,000. Savings stocks, the 401k, we're talking over $1 million. Tiffany's voice. What if he doesn't cooperate? Mike's voice. We'll have him declared incompetent. The Parkinson's thing makes it easy. Get a doctor to say he can't manage his affairs. Then we file for guardianship. Amanda's face went white. Oh my God. Tiffany's voice. What about Amanda? Mike's voice. Amanda will side with me. She always does. I stopped the recording. Amanda was crying. Dylan recorded this. Your mother gave him the phone 2 years before she died. She knew Amanda. She knew everything. Knew what, since when? 10 years. I kept my voice steady. Your mother started planning in 2014. She knew about Mike's gambling debts. She knew about the money he borrowed and never paid back. She knew he'd come after me when she was gone. So she protected me. Changed the house deed to her name in 2021. Updated her will. Set up a defense fund. Left evidence. Left instructions. I paused. She even left a video message explaining everything. We'll see it at the will reading on June 20th. Amanda's shoulders shook. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know. I know, sweetheart. She looked up. Her eyes were devastated. He told me he needed $25,000 for funeral expenses. I gave it to him. I withdrew it from my retirement account. I thought it was for Mom. The room went silent. He told your mother the same thing in 2018, I said quietly. Said he needed $12,000 for business licenses. She gave it to him. He never paid it back. There are 67 receipts in a box your mother left me. Loans going back to 2009. Over $55,000. He never repaid a cent. Amanda buried her face in her hands. He lied to all of us. Yes. For years. Yes. She looked up. What do I do, Dad? I reached across and took her hand. You get to choose. I won't force you. I won't guilt you. Mike is your brother. That's real, but you get to decide who you stand with. Amanda squeezed my hand. I choose you. I'm standing with you, Dad. Her phone rang. Joshua, she answered on speaker. Hey, Joshua's voice said. Everything okay? You left the hospital in a hurry. Amanda's voice shook. Josh, I need to tell you something. She explained everything. The recording, the loans, the lies, Virginia's 10-year plan. When she finished, there was silence on the line. Then Joshua said, We're going to the will reading. All of us. Amanda wiped her eyes. You sure? I'm sure. Your dad's family. That's all I need to know. Amanda smiled through tears. Thank you. We'll bring Isabella and Noah too, Joshua said. They should see their grandfather. It's been too long. After she hung up, Amanda stood, hugged me. We'll be there June 20th, all 4 of us. And Dad. Yeah. I'm sorry for not calling, for not visiting, for believing Mike without asking questions. You didn't know. I should have. She headed for the door. Stopped. Will you be okay? I will now. She left, promising to bring the grandkids next weekend. After Amanda drove away that night, I felt something shift. I wasn't alone anymore. Virginia's plan was working. Christine had the evidence. Dylan had the recording. Amanda was standing with me. Even Leonard, who'd given me his couch for 3 months without complaint, was proof that family wasn't always blood. But Mike wasn't done fighting. A week later, Leonard's house was vandalized. Spray paint on the garage door, broken windows, and a message that left no doubt who was responsible. I stood in the driveway at dawn, staring at the words someone had painted in red. Liar. Mike was getting desperate. And desperate men do dangerous things. Leonard stood in his driveway in his bathrobe and slippers, holding a coffee mug. The steam rose into the cold morning air. His face was pale. "Jesus Christ," he said. I walked past him to get a better look. The word was 6 feet tall, dripping red paint like blood. 3 windows on the first floor were smashed. Glass glittered on the lawn. The mailbox had been knocked over. The flower beds Virginia had helped Leonard plant 5 years ago were trampled flat. "Leonard, I'm so sorry," I said. "This is because of me." He turned. His jaw was set. "Don't apologize. This proves we're right." "Right about what?" "That your son is out of control." He pulled out his phone. "I'm calling the police." I looked at the garage door again, at the word, at what Mike had reduced himself to. "Do it," I said. Officer Mark Sullivan arrived 20 minutes later. He was a young cop with a crew cut and kind eyes. He'd been on the force for 10 years, Leonard said. Good guy. Fair. Sullivan walked the perimeter of the house, taking notes. Photographed the spray paint, the broken windows, the mailbox. He asked Leonard if anything was stolen. No, Leonard said. This wasn't about theft. This was about intimidation. Sullivan looked at me. Mr. Morgan, your friend says you know who did this. I do. You have proof. Leonard stepped forward. Security cameras. I installed them after a break-in 2 years ago. Sullivan's expression changed. You have footage. Everything. We went inside. Leonard pulled up the security system on his laptop, found the timestamp 2:34 a.m., pressed play. The screen showed Leonard's driveway in night vision, empty, quiet. Then at 2:34, a black BMW pulled up. No headlights. The driver's side door opened. A man got out. Tall, heavy build, wearing a hoodie. He walked straight to the garage with a spray paint can, started painting. The red letters showed up dark on the camera. Liar. Then he moved to the windows, picked up a rock from the flower bed, smashed 3 windows in quick succession. The sound carried on the recording like gunshots. He kicked over the mailbox, trampled the flowers, got back in the BMW, drove away. The entire thing took 4 minutes. Officer Sullivan rewound the footage, paused on the license plate, zoomed in. The plate was crystal clear. That's your son's car, Sullivan said. It wasn't a question. Yes, Sullivan wrote in his notebook. This is pretty clear-cut. I'm filing charges. Vandalism, destruction of property, criminal mischief. Will that stop him? I asked. Sullivan closed his notebook. It'll slow him down. He'll have to appear in court, pay fines, maybe community service, and it goes on his record. He looked at me. Is there anything else I should know, other incidents? I thought about the intervention, the hospital bill, the forged power of attorney, the locks changed on my own house. A lot, I said. But my lawyer has the documentation. Sullivan handed me his card. Have her call me. We'll coordinate. After Sullivan left, Leonard and I stood in the driveway staring at the garage door. He's losing control, Leonard said. I know. What happens when he loses it completely? I didn't have an answer. I called Christine from Leonard's kitchen. She answered on the second ring. Edward, what happened? I told her about the vandalism, the security footage, the BMW, the police report. Christine was silent for a moment. Then she said, I'm adding this to the complaint. This is witness intimidation now. He's trying to scare you into dropping the case. Is it working? Is it? I looked out the window at Leonard boarding up the broken windows, at the garage door with its bleeding red letters, at my friend who'd given me his couch for 3 months without complaint and was now paying the price. No, I said. It's not working. Good, because we're almost there. 3 more months, June 20th. The will reading, that's when this ends. What if he does something worse before then? Christine's voice was steady. Then we document it. Every threat, every act of vandalism, every violation. We build the case, and when the time comes, we show the judge exactly who Mike Morgan is. After I hung up, I went outside to help Leonard. We spent the afternoon boarding up windows, cleaning glass off the lawn, covering the spray paint with plywood. Neighbors stopped by to ask what happened. Mrs. Armstrong from 3 houses down brought us sandwiches. Mr. Patterson offered to help with repairs. By sunset, the house looked like it was under siege. Leonard stood back surveying our work. You know what the funny thing is? What? I've lived in this house for 32 years, raised my kids here, lost my wife here, never had a single problem. He turned to me. You move in for 3 months, and suddenly I'm a crime scene. I'm sorry. Don't be. He clapped me on the shoulder. This is what family does, and your family now. That night, I lay on Leonard's couch staring at the ceiling, thinking about Mike, about how far he'd fallen, how desperate he'd become. The intervention had failed. The vandalism had failed. What would he try next? I didn't know then that the worst was still ahead. That 3 months later, on June 17th, Mike would show up at Leonard's door at midnight drunk and furious. That Officer Sullivan would be called back. And that this time the police wouldn't just file a report. They'd make an arrest. But on March 15th, boarding up broken windows in the fading light, I only knew one thing: Mike was running out of options. And when desperate men run out of options, they become dangerous. We had 3 months until the will reading. 3 months to stay safe. 3 months to trust Virginia's plan. I just hoped it would be enough. At 11:30 on the night of June 17th, 3 days before the will reading, Leonard and I were watching the late news when someone started pounding on the front door. Not knocking, pounding, like they were trying to break through with their fists. I knew before Leonard checked the window. I knew from the rhythm of the blows, from the rage behind them. It was Mike. Leonard pulled back the curtain. His face went pale. His BMW's in the driveway, engines still running. The pounding got louder. Open up! Mike's voice slurred and furious. Open this goddamn door! Leonard let the curtain fall. He's drunk. Don't open it. Wasn't planning to. Mike kicked the door. The whole frame shook. I know the old man's in there. You think you've won. You think that will reading is going to change anything. My hands started trembling. The Parkinson's always got worse when I was afraid. I shoved them in my pockets. Mom left everything to me, Mike shouted. You hear me? Everything. You're going to die alone and broke, and no one's going to remember you. Leonard moved to the phone. I caught his arm. Wait. For what? I want to hear what he says. All of it. Leonard hesitated, then nodded. But he kept his hand on the phone. Mike was still shouting. That house is mine. The insurance money is mine. Amanda was supposed to side with me. She always sided with me. But you turned her against me. You poisoned my own daughter against me. I closed my eyes. Amanda, my daughter, who'd cried in this living room a month ago, who'd chosen to stand with me. Mike couldn't forgive that. And Dylan. Mike's voice cracked. My own son, recording me like some kind of spy. He's a traitor, just like you. Something in his voice made my chest tighten. Not anger, grief. Mike had lost his family and he knew it. The intervention had failed. The vandalism had failed. Amanda had chosen me. Dylan had chosen truth. And in 3 days at the will reading, Mike would lose everything else. He kicked the door again. Harder this time. I heard wood splinter. Leonard picked up the phone. I'm calling 911. Do it. Leonard dialed. Spoke quietly to the dispatcher. There's a drunk man threatening the homeowner. Yes, he's outside now. 847 Hillside Avenue, West Hartford. Please hurry. Mike must have heard Leonard's voice through the door because he kicked it again. You hiding behind that old man, Dad, can't face your own son. You're not my son, I said quietly. Too quietly for him to hear through the door. But Leonard heard. He squeezed my shoulder. The police are coming, Leonard called through the door. You need to leave, Mike. Mike laughed. It was an ugly sound. Police for what? Visiting my father. That's not a crime. Drunk and disorderly is. I'm not drunk. You can barely stand up. There was a long silence. Then Mike spoke again, and this time his voice was different, softer, almost pleading. I just want to talk to him, that's all. Just let me talk to my dad. My chest hurt. Leonard looked at me. I shook my head. Not tonight, Mike, Leonard said. Please. Mike's voice broke. Please, I need to talk to him. I need to explain. Explain what? I moved to the door. Didn't open it. Just stood there with 3 inches of wood between us. Explain how you forged my wife's signature. Explain how you changed the locks on my house the day after she died. Explain how you tried to have me declared incompetent so you could steal everything. Silence. Then Mike's voice came back hard again. Cold. That will reading won't change anything. You're still going to lose. We'll see. You're going to regret this. I already do, but not for the reasons you think. Sirens cut through the night, getting closer. Mike swore. I heard his footsteps on the porch. Running, the BMW door slammed, but before he could drive away, blue and red lights flooded the driveway. Officer Mark Sullivan's voice amplified through the cruiser's speaker. Mike Morgan, step out of the vehicle. Leonard and I watched through the window. Mike got out slowly, stumbled, caught himself on the car door. Officer Sullivan approached with his hand on his belt. You been drinking tonight, Mike? Just a couple beers. How many is a couple? I don't know. 4, 5. And you drove here? It's not far. Sullivan pulled out his handcuffs. Turn around. Hands on the vehicle. What, why? You're drunk in public. You're threatening a resident. And according to my records, this is the 3rd time we've been called to this address because of you. Sullivan's voice was flat. professional. Turn around. Mike turned. Sullivan cuffed him, read him his rights, walked him to the patrol car. As Sullivan opened the back door, Mike looked at Leonard's house, at the boarded-up windows from the vandalism, at the window where I was standing. Our eyes met through the glass. For a moment I saw my son. Not the man who'd forged documents and changed locks and tried to steal his mother's estate. Just my son, 42 years old, drunk, desperate, broken. Then Sullivan put a hand on Mike's head and guided him into the cruiser. After the patrol car left, Sullivan came to the door. Leonard let him in. "Mr. Morgan," Sullivan said, "this is the third incident. Vandalism in March. Now this. I'm going to recommend a restraining order." "Will it help?" Sullivan's expression was grim. "It means if he comes near you again, he goes to jail." "No warnings." He paused. "The will reading is in 3 days. June 20th, 2 o'clock. I'll make sure there's an officer present, just in case." After Sullivan left, Leonard and I sat in the living room. The late news was still playing, but neither of us watched. 3 days, Leonard said. 3 days. I looked at the wedding photo on Leonard's mantle, the one I'd saved from the trash. Virginia and me 45 years ago, standing outside St. Paul's Episcopal Church. We were so young, so sure the world would be fair if we just worked hard and loved each other and raised our kids right. We'd been wrong about the world, but not about each other. She knew this would happen, I said. Virginia. She knew Mike would do exactly this. 10 years ago she knew. She was a smart woman. She was playing chess while he was playing checkers. I smiled. That's what Christine said. Leonard stood. You should try to sleep. Big day Thursday. I don't think I can sleep. Try anyway. But I couldn't. I lay on Leonard's couch, staring at the ceiling, thinking about Mike drunk in a holding cell, about Amanda and Dylan choosing truth over blood, about Virginia's video message waiting to be played, about the 10 years she'd spent protecting me from this moment. In 3 days at 2 p.m., everything would change. Virginia's plan, a decade in the making, would finally be revealed. Mike, drunk and desperate and convinced he'd already won, would learn the truth. I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. At exactly 2 o'clock on the afternoon of June 20th, 2024, I walked into Christine Lawson's conference room for the reading of Virginia's will. I'd been waiting for this moment for 194 days. 194 days since the phone call that changed everything. Today, it would end. The conference room was on the 3rd floor of Harrison & Cole Law Offices, a downtown Hartford building with marble floors and mahogany trim. The room itself was elegant, a long table that could seat 10, leather chairs, a video screen mounted on the wall, large windows overlooking Asylum Avenue. The afternoon sun slanted through, making everything look staged. I walked in with Leonard. Christine met us at the door. Edward, Leonard, thank you for coming. She shook our hands. Her grip was steady. We're just waiting for a few more people. Amanda was already there. She stood when she saw me. Her husband Joshua stood beside her with Isabella and Noah, my grandchildren, 8 and 10 years old. I hadn't seen them in 5 years. Isabella had Virginia's eyes. Noah had her smile. Grandpa, Isabella whispered. I knelt down and hugged them both. They smelled like sunscreen and summer. Thank you for coming, I said. Amanda touched my shoulder. We wouldn't miss it. Dylan arrived next, 17 now. He wore a button-down shirt and khakis that his mother had probably picked out. When he saw me, he walked straight over and sat in the chair next to mine. Grandpa, he said. He pulled out his phone. The old phone Virginia had given him, set it on the table between us. The recording. Thanksgiving 2022. Just in case. Christine took her seat at the head of the table. Her legal assistant sat beside her with a laptop and documents. I sat on Christine's right with Dylan next to me, then Amanda, Joshua, and the kids. Leonard sat at the far end. The chairs on the other side of the table sat empty. At 2:05, Mike walked in. He looked terrible. 3 days in, holding after the drunk and disorderly arrest had left him unshaven, rumpled. His lawyer, James Cooper, walked beside him in an expensive suit that made Mike look even worse by comparison. Tiffany trailed behind them, eyes down. Mike surveyed the room, saw Dylan sitting next to me, saw Amanda with her family. His expression darkened. "Well," he said, "isn't this cozy?" He sat directly across from me. James Cooper sat beside him, already pulling out documents. Tiffany took the chair at the end. Mike leaned back, smiled at me. "Enjoy your last day in the spotlight, Dad." I didn't respond. Christine cleared her throat. "Thank you all for being here. We're gathered for the reading of the last will and testament of Virginia Eleanor Morgan, executed on March 15th, 2022. She opened a leather folder. The will. I'd seen it before in her office back in January, but now it felt different. Real. Final. "Before we begin," Christine continued, "I want to clarify that Mrs. Morgan was of sound mind and full testamentary capacity when this will was executed. We have documentation from Dr. Emily Williams, a forensic psychiatrist, confirming this. Mrs. Morgan was evaluated 3 times between 2021 and 2022. All evaluations confirmed her mental competence." Mike waved his hand dismissively. "Of course she was competent. She knew exactly what she was doing." Christine's eyes flicked to him. "Good. Then you'll have no grounds to contest." Mike's smile faltered, just for a second. Then it came back, but harder now. More forced. James Cooper leaned forward. "Ms. Lawson, my client is simply eager to proceed. If we could move forward with the distributions." "We will," Christine said. "But Mrs. Morgan left very specific instructions about how this reading should proceed, and I'm bound by the terms of the will to follow them exactly." She nodded to her assistant, who stood and moved to the video screen. "Mrs. Morgan recorded a video message," Christine said. "She wanted it played before any distributions are read." The room went still. Mike's legs started bouncing under the table. "A video? That's ridiculous. Just read the damn will." "The video is part of the will," Christine said calmly. "If we don't play it, the entire will becomes invalid and the estate goes to probate. Connecticut law allows testators to include video testimony as part of their last wishes, provided certain conditions are met. Mrs. Morgan met all those conditions." James Cooper frowned. "How long is this video?" 32 minutes. 32. Mike started. "It was recorded on March 12th, 2022. Christine continued, "In this conference room, 9 months before Mrs. Morgan's death. She was evaluated by Dr. Williams immediately before and after the recording. I was present. So was a notary. Everything was done according to Connecticut estate law." She looked around the table, at all of us. "Mrs. Morgan knew some of you might object to watching this. She anticipated that. So she included a clause in the will stating that anyone who refuses to watch the video in full forfeits their inheritance. The entire inheritance goes to charity." Mike's face went red. "You can't do that." "I didn't do it. Your mother did." Christine's voice was ice. So I'll ask once, does anyone object to watching this video? Silence. James Cooper whispered something to Mike. Mike shook his head, jaw clenched. No objections, Cooper said. Good. Christine nodded to her assistant. The lights dimmed. The video screen flickered on. For a moment there was nothing but static. Then the image cleared. Virginia appeared. She was sitting at this same table, same leather chairs, same windows behind her. She wore a blue cardigan I recognized. Her hair was shorter than I remembered. She'd lost weight. But her eyes were clear and bright and alive. Amanda made a small sound. Isabella buried her face in her mother's shoulder. Noah stared at the screen, mouth open. Dylan's hand was clenched into a fist on the table. Mike had gone pale. Virginia looked directly at the camera. Directly at us. She folded her hands on the table and took a breath. Then she spoke. "Hello, everyone," she said. Her voice filled the room. Warm. Real, like she was sitting right here. "If you're watching this, I'm gone. And I have a few things I need to say." The room went silent. Even Mike stopped moving. Even James Cooper stopped shuffling papers. We all just stared at the screen, at Virginia, at my wife speaking to us from 9 months before her death, telling us she had things to say. And I realized, sitting in that conference room with the sun slanting through the windows and my wife's face filling the screen, that this was the moment everything had been building toward. This was what Virginia had planned for 10 years. This was her final move. And Mike, sitting across from me with his lawyer and his forged documents and his absolute certainty that he'd won, had no idea what was coming. None of us did. Virginia's voice filled the conference room, and for a moment, it felt like she'd never left. "Edward, my love," she said, looking directly into the camera. "If you're watching this, I'm so sorry I'm not there with you. But I want you to know I've been preparing for this day for a very long time." My throat tightened. Beside me, Dylan sat perfectly still. Virginia folded her hands on the table. "I need to start at the beginning. In 2014, I had a cancer scare. For 3 weeks, I thought I was dying. And in those 3 weeks, I realized that if I died, Edward would be alone, vulnerable, and our son would destroy him." Mike shifted in his chair. James Cooper put a hand on his arm. "So I made a plan," Virginia continued. "A 10-year plan. I got a part-time job at the library. I saved every penny. I opened a separate bank account. I transferred the house deed into my name in March 2021. I updated my life insurance. I documented everything Mike borrowed. And I worked with Christine Lawson to make sure that when I died, Edward would be protected." She held up receipts. "These are loans my son asked me for between 2009 and 2021, $55,000. He promised each time to pay it back. He never did." She set them down. "The first loan was $30,000 in 2009. Mike said he had a business opportunity. What he had was a gambling problem." Mike's face went red. "This is quiet," Christine said. Virginia's expression was sad now. "I found out about the gambling in 2015. Mike came to me crying, said he owed money to dangerous people. I gave him $5,000, made him promise never to gamble again." She paused. "He was back 6 months later." I looked at Mike. He was staring at the table. "I kept giving him money," Virginia said. "Not because I believed his lies, but because he's my son. I loved him. I still love him, but I couldn't let him destroy Edward." She took a breath. "So here's how my estate will be distributed." Everyone leaned forward. "The house at 523 Maple Drive belongs to Edward. The deed is in my name, and my will transfers it directly to him. It's worth approximately $520,000. Edward also receives my life insurance $400,000 and my savings $178,000. He receives my stocks, my 401k, and all personal property. Amanda's hand covered her mouth. Amanda, Virginia said, and my daughter started crying. You receive $100,000. You also receive all my jewelry, my photo albums, and my 2019 Honda Accord. Amanda nodded, tears streaming. Joshua pulled her close. Dylan, Virginia continued, you receive a trust fund of $75,000. It becomes available when you turn 18. The money is for college, for your future. Dylan's jaw clenched. His eyes were wet. Virginia's expression hardened. And Mike, you receive $10,000 and a letter explaining why you're receiving only that amount. The room went silent. Virginia leaned forward. Mike, I know you're angry right now. You thought you'd inherit everything. You thought the house was yours. But here's the truth, son. You lost your inheritance long before I died. You lost it when you chose gambling over family. You lost it when you forged my signature. You lost it when you tried to have your father declared incompetent. Mike's face drained of all color. This house was never yours to inherit, Virginia said firmly. Your father and I bought it in 1985. We paid every mortgage payment. We raised you in it. And when I transferred the deed into my name in 2021, it was to protect it from you. To protect Edward from you. Tiffany stood up suddenly and walked out. The door closed behind her. James Cooper whispered something to Mike. Mike shook his head violently. I don't hate you, Mike, Virginia said. You're my son. I will always love you, but I also know who you are. If I left you the house, you'd sell it within a year. You'd gamble the money away. And Edward would have nothing. She paused. The $10,000 I'm leaving you is enough to get help. Real help. There's a treatment program in Massachusetts for gambling addiction. The money will cover 6 months. What you do with it is your choice. But I'm not enabling you anymore. Virginia turned slightly, then looked back. Dylan, I need you to know something. You are so much braver than you know. You're 16 years old, and you're standing up to a man who should have been protecting you. That takes courage. Your grandfather needs you. Amanda needs you. And I need you to keep being brave. Dylan's hand shook on the table. I reached over and took it. Virginia smiled, the smile I remembered, the one she'd given me for 44 years. Edward, she said softly, my love, my rock, you've spent our entire marriage trying to fix things, trying to help everyone, and I love you for it. But this time I fixed it for you. Tears ran down my face. You deserve peace, Virginia said. You deserve to keep the home we built. You deserve to know that Amanda and Dylan love you, that Leonard is there for you, that you're not alone. She leaned forward. I've left you everything I could. The house, the money, the proof you need. And most importantly, I've left you free. Free from Mike's manipulation. Free from fear. Her eyes were wet now, too. I love you, Edward Morgan. I've loved you since I was 22 years old. And I will love you forever. The screen went dark. For a long moment, no one moved. Amanda was sobbing. Joshua held her. Isabella and Noah looked confused. Leonard was wiping his eyes. Dylan stared at the blank screen. I couldn't breathe. Then Mike stood up, his chair scraped back, his whole body shaking. This isn't over, he said hoarsely. I'll contest this will. I'll sue. Dylan stood up. He was holding his phone, the old phone Virginia had given him. "Actually, Dad," Dylan said quietly. "There's one more thing you need to hear." Dylan stood there with the phone in his hand. The old phone Virginia had given him 5 years ago. The phone that had been sitting on the table between us this entire time, waiting. "There's one more thing you need to hear," Dylan said again. Mike's face was still red from Virginia's video, from hearing his mother tell him he'd lost everything. "Sit down, Dylan. This doesn't concern you." "Actually, Dad, it does." Dylan set the phone on the table, pressed play. James Cooper stood. "Ms. Lawson, I object to." "Your client can leave if he wants," Christine said. "But Dylan Morgan is a named beneficiary in the will. He has the right to speak." Cooper sat back down. Mike looked at him, then at Dylan, then at the phone. The recording started. At first, there was just background noise, dishes clinking, voices talking. Then Mike's voice came through clearly. "Once the old man is gone, we'll have everything. The house is worth $500,000. Life insurance is $400,000. Savings stocks, the 401k, we're talking over $1 million. The room went silent. Tiffany's voice on the recording, "What if he doesn't cooperate?" Mike's voice, "We'll have him declared incompetent. The Parkinson's thing makes it easy. Get a doctor to say he can't manage his affairs. Then we file for guardianship." Amanda covered her mouth, started crying again. Joshua put his arm around her. Tiffany's voice, "What about Amanda?" Mike's voice laughing, "Amanda will side with me. She always does." I looked at my daughter. She was shaking her head, tears streaming down her face. The recording continued. Mike's voice, "And if that doesn't work, we forge a power of attorney. He's old. He's got Parkinson's. No one's going to question it." The room felt like all the air had been sucked out. Dylan stopped the recording. The silence that followed was absolute. Mike stood up slowly. His hands were shaking. That was taken out of context. We were just talking, just joking around." "You weren't joking." Dylan's voice was steady, calm. "I was in the next room, Dad. I heard everything. Grandma asked me to record it because she knew. She knew what you were planning. You recorded me, your own father. You were planning to steal from Grandpa, your own father." Mike's face went purple. "You little... Mr. Morgan." James Cooper stood. His expression was grim. He picked up his briefcase. "I'm withdrawing as your counsel. Effective immediately." Mike spun to face him. "What?" "That recording is evidence of intent to commit elder financial abuse, possibly fraud. I can't represent you." Cooper looked at Christine. "The will is valid. My client has no grounds to contest." He walked to the door, stopped, looked back at Mike. "Get help. Real help." Then he left. Mike stood there in the middle of the conference room, his lawyer gone, his inheritance gone, his family staring at him like he was a stranger. "This is bullshit," he said. His voice was shaking. "All of this. Mom turned you all against me. She poisoned you." "Mom protected us," Amanda said. Her voice was quiet, but firm. "She protected Dad from you." Mike turned to her. "You're choosing him over me. Your own brother. You're not my brother anymore." Amanda stood. "My brother died a long time ago. You're just someone who looks like him." Mike's face crumpled. For a second I thought he might cry. Then his expression changed, hardened into something ugly and desperate. He lunged toward Dylan. I started to stand, but Joshua was faster. He stepped between Mike and Dylan, one hand up. "Don't," Joshua said quietly. Mike stopped, looked at Joshua, at Dylan, at me, at Amanda, at the empty chairs where Tiffany and his lawyer had been sitting. Then something in him seemed to break. His legs gave out. He collapsed into the chair, put his head in his hands. His whole body was shaking. "I need," he started, stopped. "I need." Then he slumped forward, unconscious. Christine was already at the door. "We need medical assistance. Conference room B." I'd forgotten. Officer Sullivan had arranged for paramedics to be on standby, just in case. 2 EMTs came in within seconds, checked Mike's pulse, his breathing. One of them said something about syncope, psychological shock. They helped him sit up, got him conscious again. Mike's eyes were unfocused, glassy. He let them help him stand, let them guide him toward the door. As he passed Dylan, he stopped, looked at his son. Dylan looked back, didn't flinch. Mike opened his mouth like he was going to say something, then closed it. There was nothing left to say. The paramedics led him out. The door closed. The silence that followed felt different, lighter, like something heavy had been lifted. I looked at Dylan, my grandson, 16 years old, braver than any man I'd ever known. "Thank you," I whispered. Dylan took my hand, squeezed it. "Grandma told me to wait for the right moment. She said I'd know when it was." He looked at me. This was it. Christine Lawson stood, picked up the official will documents, looked around the table at all of us, at Amanda and Joshua and the kids, at Dylan, at Leonard, at me. Then she said 5 words that changed everything. "Now, let's finish this." After the paramedics led Mike out, Christine stood at the head of the table with the will documents spread before her. "Now," she said quietly, "let's finish this." She opened to the distribution page. Her voice was steady and professional. "To Amanda Morgan Davis, $100,000 in cash. Virginia's complete jewelry collection, including her wedding band and her mother's engagement ring, the 2019 Honda Accord, and a personal letter." Amanda covered her mouth with both hands. Joshua held her shoulders. "Auditor, to Dylan Morgan, a trust fund of $75,000 to be held until his 18th birthday on July 15, 2025. The funds are designated for college. Also, all family photo albums dating back to 1979 and Virginia's handwritten recipe box." Dylan's hand squeezed mine under the table. "To Michael Thomas Morgan, $10,000 in cash and a sealed letter to be delivered separately." 10,000. Enough to prevent a legal contest for total disinheritance. Nothing more. Christine turned to the final page. "To Edward James Morgan, the house at 523 Maple Drive, valued at $520,000. Life insurance policy of $400,000. Savings account of $178,000. All stock portfolios, retirement accounts, and remaining personal property. Total estate value transferred approximately $1,098,000. I couldn't speak. Virginia had saved everything, had protected me completely, had given me back not just the house, but my entire future. "There's one more thing," Christine said. She handed Dylan a sealed envelope. "Mrs. Morgan specifically asked that Dylan read this letter aloud. She wanted everyone here to hear it. Dylan took the envelope with shaking hands, opened it carefully. Inside was a single sheet of paper in Virginia's handwriting. He cleared his throat and began to read. Dylan, my brave boy, if you're reading this, you did what I asked. You waited for the right moment. You told the truth even when it was hard, even when it meant standing against your father. I want you to know how proud I am of you. You are 16 years old, and you have more courage than most men twice your age. Your grandfather needs you. Amanda needs you. Be there for them. Love them. And don't let your father's choices define who you are. You are not his mistakes. You are your own person, strong, honest, and good. I love you. I've always loved you. Grandma Virginia. Dylan's voice broke on the last words. He pressed the letter against his chest. Tears ran down his face. Amanda stood up, walked around the table, pulled Dylan into a fierce hug. Then she reached for me, and suddenly we were all holding each other, Amanda and Dylan and me, with Joshua and the kids joining us. Even Leonard, standing nearby, wiped his eyes. When we separated, Christine handed me one final envelope, small, sealed with red wax. My name written on the front in Virginia's careful script. She marked this one private, Christine said softly. I opened it with trembling hands. Inside was a single sentence in Virginia's handwriting: plant lavender in the backyard. I will always be there with you. I closed my eyes. Virginia's garden journal. Her love of lavender. The way she'd tended those purple flowers every summer for 40 years. She was giving me a way to remember her. A way to keep her close. When we left the conference room that afternoon, 6 months after Virginia's death, 194 days after the phone call that changed everything, I held Dylan's hand on one side and Amanda's on the other. We walked past Mike's empty chair, past the video screen where Virginia had said goodbye, and stepped out into the warm June sunshine. This wasn't the end. It was a new beginning. In December of 2024, 6 months after the will reading, I sold 523 Maple Drive for $530,000 and bought a 2-bedroom condo in Portland, Maine for $280,000. Smaller, easier to manage, and 20 minutes from Amanda's family. Dylan moved in with me in August to finish his senior year. Mike had lost his house to foreclosure, and Tiffany had filed for divorce. Dylan chose to stay with me. I want to finish school here, he said. With you. Mike's company went bankrupt by September. Gambling debts came due. By fall, he was working nights at a hardware store, attending Gamblers Anonymous 3 times a week. In November, Mike sent Dylan a letter apologizing, saying he was getting help. Dylan read it, folded it carefully, and put it in his desk. I'm not ready yet, he told me. Maybe someday. I said that was okay. In October, I donated $50,000 to open the Virginia Morgan Memorial Workshop in Hartford, a woodworking program for at-risk teenagers. Leonard volunteered to teach there. By year's end, they'd helped more than 40 kids. My Parkinson's stayed manageable. On weekends, Dylan and I worked in the garage. I taught him how to use tools, join corners, sand with the grain. He had good hands. On July 15, 2025, Dylan turned 18. The $75,000 trust became active. He enrolled at Portland Community College for architecture. I want to build houses like you, Grandpa, he said. Amanda visited every Sunday with Joshua and the kids. Isabella and Noah called me Grandpa now. They'd run through the condo, fill the space with laughter. In December of 2025, exactly 2 years after Virginia died, Dylan and I sat on the balcony. Snow was falling. I'd planted lavender in pots that summer, and a few purple blooms had survived into winter. You miss her, Dylan said. Every day. Me too. He paused. Do you think she knew how everything would turn out? I thought about Virginia's 10-year plan, the business card, the evidence box, the phone she'd given Dylan, the video message. Yeah, I said. I think she knew. She saved us. She did. We sat watching the snow fall. 2 years ago, I'd been on Leonard's couch wondering if I'd lost everything. Now I had a home, family, peace. Dylan stood. I'm going to make hot chocolate. Want some? Yeah, thanks. He went inside and I stayed on the balcony. I thought about Virginia, about meeting her 46 years ago at a church dance, about buying 523 Maple Drive in 1985, about the 10 years she'd spent protecting me, the secrets she'd carried, the evidence she'd collected, the plan she'd executed perfectly even after death. She was gone, but she was still here, in Dylan's hands building bookshelves, in Amanda's laughter, in the lavender on my balcony, in the workshop teaching kids to build, in the family she'd fought to save. Dylan came back with 2 mugs of hot chocolate. We sat together in the cold, watching the city lights through the falling snow. Grandpa, Dylan said. Yeah, I'm glad I stayed. Me too, buddy. Me too. And that I realized as the snow fell and the lavender bloomed, and my grandson sat beside me was more than enough. And to you listening to this family story tonight, remember this: God gave us family, not as a burden, but as a blessing. Virginia understood that. She spent 10 years protecting what God entrusted to her, not with anger, but with love. She knew that true strength isn't about dad revenge or getting even. It's about standing firm in faith when everything falls apart. I look back at my own family story now, and I see God's hand in every moment. In the business card Virginia left in my wallet, in Dylan's courage to record the truth, in Amanda's choice to stand with me, even in Leonard's couch where I slept for 3 months. God was there working through Virginia's plan, teaching me that justice and love aren't opposites, they're partners. So here's my advice: don't wait like I did. Don't assume the people you love will always be there tomorrow. Don't let pride or silence build walls in your family story. And if you see someone you love heading down a destructive path like Mike did with his gambling, speak up early. Get help early. Intervene before it's too late. Because by the time I realized what was happening, Virginia had already been fighting alone for 10 years. Dad revenge. That's not what this story is about. Some people might see it that way: a son trying to steal everything, a father fighting back. But that's not the heart of it. This is about a woman who loved her husband enough to carry the weight of truth by herself. That's the story here: sacrifice, protection, and grace. Not dad revenge, but a father's redemption through his wife's unconditional love. Virginia taught me that protecting your family doesn't always mean confrontation. Sometimes it means planning quietly. Sometimes it means collecting evidence. Sometimes it means giving your grandson a phone and trusting him to be brave. She taught me that love is strategic, that faith requires action, and that dad revenge is empty compared to the power of a well-executed plan rooted in love. If this story moved you tonight, please leave a comment below. Share your thoughts or your own experiences. Hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you never miss these compelling narratives. And if you know someone going through family struggles, please share this video with them. Thank you for staying with me until the very end. Your time and attention mean more than you know. One important note: the stories on this channel contain fictionalized elements crafted for entertainment and reflection. If this content isn't your preference, feel free to explore other videos. God bless you all.